This year's really been a watershed year for TV everywhere. We've seen both operators get online with their experiences and really take that out to lots of different devices like game consoles and smart TVs. We've also seen a lot of networks and programmers bring their TV everywhere experiences online. Companies like A&E and Scripps, companies like NBC as well, really launching and getting into the TV everywhere space. And the results have actually been really good. The platform now is about 32 different brands that do something around TV everywhere. It's a TV everywhere experience, whether it's a portal for a big pay TV operator or a brand that's launching their own owned and operated experience. The traffic is actually growing significantly. On any given month this fall, we've seen about 150, 160 million video views that are TV everywhere authenticated experiences, and that's up 50% from even just this spring. So we're really starting to see more TV everywhere or authenticated experiences come online, and more consumers starting to use those and find that content that they're looking for. So it's really it's been a great kind of growing year for getting into the TV everywhere business. As a network is renegotiating their deals with their pay TV operators or MVPDs, they're getting to this point where online distribution, mobile distribution, it's just part of the deal now. So it took a long time because it's a lot of resistance to kind of cracking those deals open and renegotiating them. But as they have come up to their expiration dates and they've negotiated new packages, TV everywhere is just part of it, and there's online distribution. So really we see that anytime there's a conversation between a network group and their pay TV distributors, TV everywhere is part of that equation. And it's really for the whole library. It's VOD content. This year we've seen a lot of live events come online, especially around sports, and even some of the regional sports networks that have local broadcast or local online streaming rights, but only to their city. So again, you can offer that experience, but it's a very localized experience. And then linear channels is another big phenomenon this year, where most of the deals that we've seen and most of the experiences that we're launching include not just a VOD library, but also the linear channel as well. So you can watch that experience just like you would on TV, and you see companies like Time Warner and Cablevision and recently Comcast adding that linear channel lineup as part of their TV everywhere experience. So that's been a big movement this year. It turns out during the workday, PC consumption, and actually you see prime time happen. It starts about lunchtime on the East Coast, and you can just track lunch across the country as people consume and catch up on their favorite shows over their lunch hour break and things like that. At night, actually, what's been really interesting is tablet usage actually really mirrors TV usage. People are using it like another screen in the home. So while my wife may be watching something on the TV, I can dial up a sports show and watch it on my tablet. And it really becomes a second screen in my home. And so that's been really interesting. For the companies that invested in game consoles like Xbox, they also see a lot of usage. Game consoles have been phenomenal in terms of driving usage for those. It's expensive to invest in those native apps for an Xbox or a PlayStation, but once there, they definitely see a big audience. It's kind of waiting and sitting there and using that game console as their center of their entertainment universe. And so they've seen a lot of video views from those particular platforms. We haven't seen as much from smart TVs, but we think that's growing, and the smart TV ecosystems are getting better. Samsung just had a big developer event. Sony's doing some really smart things about how you stream and set up content for their smart TVs, their Bravia TVs. So we expect consumption to go up on smart TVs as they get more penetration, and people get more used to flipping over to that smart TV interface from the traditional cable one. So it's, yeah, I don't know, consumption's across the board. Mobile consumption still continues to go up for cell phones, but it's typically short-form content. We don't see a lot of long-form content usage on mobile phones today. Each technology ecosystem, platform, operating system, however you want to call it, has its own unique challenges. iOS is nice because it's a very closed ecosystem, and you know what to expect there. So, and it's well established, but it has its own unique challenges. There's not a solid DRM story. Stream encryption has to be good enough as a content protection scheme, and so sometimes that is allowed by the studios. Sometimes it's not. You need a more robust DRM system. So there's some challenges there. Android presents its own challenges. It's such a fractured ecosystem across it, and Android doesn't have a good native streaming format like Apple does with HLS. We think that MPEG-Dash will be that adaptive streaming, so we can compensate for various network and connectivity for each user, but you know, we're still probably 7-8 months away from a good critical mass of Dash players being embedded in Android devices. It's something I think that Google seems committed to, but it's taking some time to get there. You know, so when we look at those environments, it's definitely a critical mass of users, so it's worth investing to get there, but at the same time it has its own unique challenges and sometimes some increased costs. Game consoles, Xbox 360, it's kind of a natural, a lot of people invested there, but it's a pretty constrained environment. The UI has to look a certain way, the way you do advertising and authentication has to work a certain way. It's not as clean as you want it to be. Xbox One is a good contrast. It's much more web-like, but obviously it's a brand new device and there's just not that many users out there. So there's a question about when to invest in that kind of. And we'll see a similar pattern happen with PlayStation 4. So, you know, there's a lot of, the decisions are honestly very hard around what device to target, what's the critical mass of my audience that uses that device, and what are the costs in terms of getting to that device. And so as an entire kind of vendor ecosystem, everybody's trying to work to figure out how to simplify things, bring down that cost curve, because obviously we want to address that audience on those devices. So it's a lot of opportunity, but also a lot of challenges still. Domestically, we see some of the challenges around TV Everywhere starting to get worked out a bit. Authentication has always been a sticking point for TV Everywhere. Authentication rates have never been very successful, but there's a number of companies, Comcast, Cablevision, Cinecore, and all the different pay TV operators that they represent are introducing things like in-home authentication, Facebook Connect authentication, so that when I'm in my home, just like when I turn on my set-top box, it just knows I'm a good subscriber and I have access to this content. We see authentication rates go upwards of 90% on the success when you do in-home authentication. So I think that is a challenge that will quickly, as the rest of the industry follows suit, will get solved. Now the challenges around it are how do I control my advertising if I'm a programmer in the MVPD's website or on their app or on their Xbox? And those are more interesting conversations to have. It's kind of graduate level classes at this point in TV Everywhere. I think internationally it's been more interesting. It's a much more competitive environment. I think the UK is a great example of that, where you have you've got Sky with Sky Go, but they also have Now TV, where they're actually launching it as an over-the-top service. You've got Liberty Global coming in to buy Virgin, and what Virgin's been doing with the TiVo experience, and that's going to change, and that's super fascinating. And then you got British Telecom, who just spent billions of dollars on content rights to expand their digital rights, and so you see a lot more innovation out of markets like that, where everyone's competing for the same subscriber, and there's a lot lower overall penetration of paid TV, unlike the U.S., which is kind of 85, 86% penetrated. You know. UK is something like 35 or 40% penetrated, so there's a lot of opportunity there.